In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, grant us the light to know your will, and then give us the strength to get it done. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. The retreat and the theme of the retreat, I wasn't kidding when I said it, it's actually on silence. I know it's a silent retreat, but it's on silence. Because the truth is, a lot of us think silence is just a tool for something. That's not a bad start, but it's actually a lot more than that. So the idea is to spend the weekend learning. Most specifically today, we're going to look at the purpose and the place of silence. What does it serve? Why can I not do things talking or making noise that I can do through silence? If you're saying the retreat has to be silent, if you're saying your prayer life needs to have silence in it, then you, Father, need to explain yourself. That's talk number one. Tomorrow, the two talks will be about the silence of God. Why God doesn't speak sometimes. Why there are times when I talk to God or when, he should talk to me. This went wrong. I did what he told me to do. So we're going to look first in the morning at the silence of God in the Bible. And where does that come from? And what it means and what it matters. And then we're going to take the big one, which is why is God silent during suffering? And what does that have to do with us now? I'm doing the right thing and things go wrong. Where's that? Is God quiet? And if he is, why? And then and then Sunday we're going to finish with learning to speak the language. If silence is important, and God gives us, we have from the Bible and from outside of the Bible, we have sources of suffering and God's silence and it has a role, then how do I learn how to do this? Now, I've thought a lot about putting that first, teaching you how to be silent because it's a silent weekend. But I learned from a nun once that letting people suffer lets them pay attention to you more. So if you know how to be silent this weekend, you'll be all right. And don't worry, you don't need that fourth talk until the end of the weekend anyway. And if you don't and you struggle through the whole weekend, then you'll pay a lot of attention to me on Sunday. See? I'm going to let you fail. And then you'll listen. That's a very paternal way of raising children. Okay, so, you know, my father was like, déjalo que toque. Va a aprender, no lo toca otra vez. Not the best way to do things, but it did work. I didn't touch stuff like more than once. Okay, so first we're going to start with what is silence? Okay, one thing silence is not, and we're going to go a lot into what silence isn't to clarify it, but one thing we're going to start with the most obvious thing. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is not absence. Okay? There is emptiness as a part of it, but that's because it serves a greater purpose. We'll explain that, but it's not emptiness. It's not talking. Okay? That's not the purpose. Silence, if you want, the best thing I could say is it's not no words. It's not no thoughts. I would say it is to focus yourself on one word. To focus your mind on one thought. That's probably a better way to look at silence. If you fail with silence a lot, you probably are thinking of it as emptiness. That's why. You know, we went through a whole 4-week season just a few days ago of Advent. And I remember hearing someone speak, and he was like, I just don't understand you Catholics. You just don't want anybody to have fun. We're trying to do Christmas. What are you doing? No Christmas yet. Why can't you? Don't put up the tree yet. Don't do this yet. What are you doing? That's why nobody wants to join your religion. And I said, if you think Advent is just waiting for Christmas, then you're absolutely correct. If it's just waiting for Christmas, that's stupid. Christmas is about God's love, how intense God loves you, that he would be born for you in a filthy place to reach out to you. Then why would you not want to celebrate that? You're absolutely correct. But it's not about waiting for Christmas. He said, I said, it's about preparing for Christmas. And there is all the difference in the world between those two things. If I go to my house and I wait for food, food will not appear. I have to prepare the food. Oh, I got you. Then you realize 4 weeks is never enough. How do you prepare for God becoming man? What a ridiculous statement Catholics, Christians say. God became a man. What a ridiculous statement. From another perspective of every other religion, they'd look at us like we're insane. How dare you say that? The gods are way above us. And not only do we say it, we say that's one of the central points of our religion. All Christians. And you're going to say, I don't need any time to get ready for that. Oh, cool. You must be lots of fun when they bring you over to somebody's house. I don't got to act nice for your family. It's just me. Let's have fun. Same idea. You're meeting someone important. You should prepare. So a lot of us think Advent, right? First week of December usually, those 4 Sundays, are waiting for Christmas. So then it's an absence. So then, yes, you're right. We should celebrate Christmas from December 1st, day after Thanksgiving, or day of Thanksgiving. Why not? But if I say there's something that goes there, well, what is it? And that's what silence is like. If it's just to wait and not speaking, then yes, you're absolutely right, fill it. But if it's because there's something that goes there, then it matters. So it's focus. Even better, I would say it's hyper-focus. It's extreme focus. By the way, the science agrees with me. Neurobiology has finally caught up about 15 years ago, and then about 10 years ago, and about 5 years ago, it got really interesting. They finally caught up, and they can actually tell you what's happening in your brain when you're meditating, and you're in a deep state of prayer. We actually know what happens now. We can replicate things to help it happen. We don't necessarily make it happen, but we can certainly. So it's not just, I don't know, you're just closing your eyes and that's praying. That's not it. We can tell night and day between two people. You hook them up to the crazy machines, and we can tell this one's praying and this one ain't. So there's something. You're focusing yourself. You're quieting the body. You're quieting the mind. But it's deeper than that. But it is a start. You got to quiet the body. You have to quiet the mind. You have to get used to what's already here. You have to be aware of yourself and aware of the world around you. What do you mean? I'm always aware. No, your mind is always going to what you have to do next, or what you've done wrong, or what you used to do. That's right here. Right there. Well, like right here. This part of your brain. This and this actually tell you what you're doing right or wrong. And that's why when we hook up people to the certain kinds of brain scans, we can tell that's quiet. We can tell they're in hyperfocus. So it's something going on. You're no longer focused on who you are or the time you are feeling, the passage of time that you're feeling. You're aware of that right now. Some of you are going to start falling asleep in a few minutes. Then you're really aware of it. By the way, if you were awake a week and a half ago, then I don't want to hear it. What do you mean? For New Year's and for Christmas, you were like, woo! Que le siga fiesta, sí, que paramos la fiesta, no! Then I don't want to hear, I'm tired, Father. You're an adult. Okay? No. No. It's about being present, being quiet, and really the right phrase is entering into silence is about being present. But being present is tough. Now, I'm going to give you some good news. People think that your phone and technology are what has taken away silence. That is not true. Blaise Pascal, the philosopher and the mathematician, wrote about that 400 years ago. So, nope. It's not modern world that makes it hard to be silent. It's human beings. Noise is not what makes you not silent. Noise is the result of what's inside of you that you make noise. You with me so far? Mm-hmm. It's the symptom, not the disease. I promise. Right. You can be in a very noisy place. If we do this right, you'll learn how to be in a very noisy place and still be able to hold on to the silence. And you can tell when you meet somebody like that. He wrote, the present hurts. What a great phrase. The present hurts. That's all he wrote. That's it. The present hurts. And he's absolutely right. To be present hurts. It will tire you out. I hope you try tonight and tomorrow some of the things we'll talk about. And I suspect you'll feel the pain and the boredom. Ooh, we'll get to boredom. He also wrote, the quote's been quoted in various ways, but the source of all of humanity's problems is the inability to sit still quietly in a room alone. The source of all of humanity's problems is the inability to sit still quietly in a room alone. He's right. The present hurts. He's right on that point. And he's right on that's all of our problems. It's easier to distract yourself. It's easier to move from thing to thing. And to silence, in silence, you're learning to calm yourself. You're learning to just be, not do. Just be, not do. Do you remember Terry Schiavo? Anybody remember her? Yes. She was a young lady, young woman, who had, I forget exactly how she ended up in this, but some sort of an accident, some sort of something happened to her. And she was in what is called a persistent vegetative state, which is a very polite way of saying, we don't know, nothing's happening so far. Because there's not actually a medical definition of some of these terms in the strictest sense, and they argue over it. Basically, she looked like she was brain dead. The killer was she'd open her eyes, she'd blink, she'd sometimes react to some things and sometimes not. Is there anything going on in there? I don't know. Her husband appears and says, I want to pull the plug. The Pope asks not to, everybody asks not to, people write from around the world, please don't. Her parents say, we'll take care of her. We're her next of kin, we'll take care of her. You were estranged anyway, you were separated at some point or something anyway, we'll take care of her. And the state of the state of Florida agreed with the husband and let him pull the plug. And it took something like 11 days for that woman to die. The only reason she died is because she couldn't talk. We human beings are funny that way. If we see something talking, we assume it's alive, we have to take care of it, even when it's not real. Bears are a horrifying apex predator that will eat you while you're alive. But we love bears because we've seen Winnie the Pooh and Smokey the Bear. And you don't think I'm kidding? That's actually a real medical thing. I'm not even playing. That's a real thing. There are certain species that were like, oh, no, the bears are dying. And I'm like, good. Better you than me. Is that right? Maybe no, but it's certainly not how I want to be around them. They're terrifying. People get killed by bears because they're dumb more than people get killed by bears because they're unlucky. This is pretty bad. Because they go poking around. And they go, oh, they're majestic, beautiful creatures. Maybe. And you are a Big Mac. You will eat you. You watch video. You're going to get on YouTube and look up bear kills. And you're going to regret watching that video. Because they kill animals that you like more. Bear kills and just fill in the blank. Doesn't matter. You watch them, a baby moose and a mommy moose. And the bear kills the baby. Because it's slower. Yeah, next time you say, by the way, anything you ever say to me, be aware of this. I'm warning all of you. You ever say to me, it's natural. Understand I'm thinking of bears when I talk to you. A lot of things that are natural are horrific.
How can you say that?
I can't wait till they redo the Lion King live action. And then they explain what the new head boy lion does to the babies of the other boy lion. And how that turns on the girl lions. My kid's blood on you is so hot. What, Father? Oh, look it up. Oh, that's a thing. No, it ain't. Oh, it is. And you know I'm right. And you're freaking out right now. That's natural. Can't wait till they do that with Simba and all these things. Simba gets there. He saves at the end of the movie. He's like, I'm back. Now kill all of the children. You're like, wait, what? No. He's like, yeah. And then the other line is like, you killed my baby. That turns me on. Because you have to reproduce. Nature says we need more babies, more lion babies. Oh, well. Yeah, that's a thing. I just messed with your head. I like it. Some of you are going to stay with that for a few minutes. Okay, so you're going to lose the rest of the talk. I don't care. Okay. When things talk or don't talk, we decide that. Unborn babies, it's okay to do whatever we're going to do to them, abortion or anything, because they don't talk. The very elderly, it's okay. If they really want to die, I think it's okay. We can unplug them because they can't talk. The severely handicapped, it's okay. What's their quality of life? What would they have? Because they can't talk. Because somebody can talk and say, hey, no. We would say, oh, you can't do that? He's talking. When he can make noise, it's an amazing thing. We didn't ever ask in any of those situations whether it's human or alive. Nobody pretty much argues that it's not human or that it's not alive. We don't argue that, mostly. What we argue is whether it's deserving of other rights. The severely handicapped or the very elderly. We go, well, I mean, I don't know. Is it a human? Yeah. Is it alive? Yeah, then it gets a pass. That's not right. Yeah, no, it totally is. By the way, that knife comes around to everybody eventually. The movie we're going to watch tomorrow night, it's about 2 days coming up in your life if it hasn't come. I hope you catch what 2 days it's about. I really hope you catch this. 2 days in your life that are going to come. I hope you're aware of when they come. Some of you will have passed one of them. None of you have passed the second one. I hope you're aware of it. What's the movie about? Don't know. Okay, so, I forgot. The next thing to look at, what is silence? Now let's say, why be silent? Okay, so silence is making space for stuff. Why? Why doesn't God just talk to me? Why does he require silence? That's actually a good question. I think we can answer it, but it's a good question. Why be silent? Well, silence, I don't know if I would go in order, but the first thing I want to say is silence is honest. Silence is super honest. Insanely honest. That's what makes it uncomfortable. It's that it's honest. Look, at every moment of your day, all the time, every moment, even now, unless once in a while I can do stuff to make you do it. I'll try something later to see if I can break you of it. But you tell yourself little lies, little deceptions, little fantasies, and you ignore things and you have distractions all at once going on in your head. I'm not uncomfortable. I don't mind sitting here. I'm not that tired. All these little things are happening right now in your head all the time, 24 hours a day. Well, as long as you're awake. When you force yourself to be truly quiet, you don't have those lies anymore. I'm not saying they're evil lies. I'm not saying like it's evil to make noise or be distracted. I'm not saying that. Silence is not a virtue in and of itself, and noise is not a vice in and of itself. But it's a lot easier to see what's going on in silence. Silence reveals it. That's why two people can be comfortable in no silence, or two people can be uncomfortable in silence. Silence is honest. Everything falls away. That's what makes it so scary. That's what makes it actually can be terrifying. Part of it is because you will think, who am I? Who am I really? And you may not like that answer. You probably won't. In fact, if you're healthy, almost never will you like that answer. What do you mean, Father? What are you trying to say? I'm supposed to not like it? No, it's just left alone, evolution has produced in us a self-criticism mechanism that runs all the time. And it does that to keep you alive. Because our great ancestors that didn't think, hey, we should be careful, died because the bear ate them. So they didn't have kids. So their genes were lost. So the self-criticizing faculty that's right here and right here evolved because the people who were like, keep your eye out for stuff, they are alive. They were aware of problems. That's why, I've said this to all of you, that's why if there was one tile that was messed up in the ceiling, you would notice that one tile. You evolved for that. Because when things are good, you're not in danger. Right? So the guy was like, hey, there's food, got eaten by the bear. The guy was like, there's a bear, run. And then said later, is there food? That guy's alive. So he had kids, so his genes helped. So I'm not kidding. That's how it works. You evolved for it. So when you're silent, that little voice is going on, well, you should do this, you could do this, you shouldn't do this, you should do that. That's not weird. That's not right. That's not cool. We can train it. We should train it. We will train it. But left to its own, it's going to do what it does to keep you alive. But it also means it's not going to keep you still. It's not going to give you rest or peace. Another thing is that is upsetting when silence is so honest, but that's okay. People get nervous. I know. When I dress like this, which is my preferred method of clothing, when I dress like this, I deliberately take this off. The cassock, the shoulder cape, the cincture, the fascia, everything. I take it off, I dress down. I dress like in like the tab shirt, like the little square shirt, and like just the shirt, and maybe a sweater, when I meet people for the first time. Because I know it's upsetting. If they don't know me, they're like, what is that? Like, the beard, the robes, they're like, what? So, I tone down the personality, I tone down the wattage. I deliberately do so. I go, turn it down, so they're not ready for you. And then you can turn it up after you get warm with them, you hang out with them, and you get to know you. Because they get scared, and I know that I have to get them to heaven. So if they're scared of me, that makes my job a little bit harder. Not much. I'll kidnap you and throw you into heaven once I find the door. But I haven't found the door yet. Apparently, you have to be willing so far. But I'll figure that one out, and then I won't have to be nice anymore. So when you go to the hospital, depends on what I'm going to go visit. I'll change I always will dress formally for the hospital. Always a jacket or the cassock. I prefer the cassock. But I have to be careful. Because people get angry, because they assume the doctor is the one that gave them the disease. They don't want to see the doctor. I don't want to see no doctor. You know people who don't go to the doctor. I don't want to hear nothing bad from the doctor. He didn't give it to you. She didn't give it to you. All he did was diagnose what was already there. Silence does that. Silence doesn't cause you problems. Silence just lets you know what was there. Often there are problems. You with me so far? Yes. It's just you get mad at the doctor. It's not the doctor's fault. The next thing to look at is my favorite, boredom. Boredom. Now, before I get to boredom, I should say there's something else that happens to some of you. You, that's very attacking me, Father. I know, I'm attacking you now. Some of you struggle with silence because you have never been silent ever, except when you're asleep. So when you're silent, you sleep. No, some of you are going to sit up right now and be like, not me. And like, yeah, you. Father, that's not nice. No. It's true. Because you're never quiet. It freaks me out. I see little kids who their parents want them to be altar servers, so I train them, and they're falling asleep during the Mass. Now, look, no one, even if you don't know me, has ever accused me of taking too long at Mass. That's not me. I think the liturgy speaks for itself, so that means the homily doesn't have to be as long. If the liturgy's done well, it speaks. The prayers themselves speak for themselves. So the homily you can tone down. I don't take a long time for Mass. I don't. I think fast, I talk fast, I move fast. That's just how I am. So little kids falling asleep is like, by the way, and they're sitting across from me in the church. So I'm looking at them. And I'm looking. I'm not like, do-do-do-do-do, because I don't like that in priests. Focus. So either at your feet or at the kid who's falling asleep. Those are the two things you look at. So you have me giving you the death stare, and they're like, dozing off. And I go talk to the kid, and they're like, am I in trouble? No. Because why are you in trouble? Well, you tried. Did you try? Yeah. Okay. So did you sleep? Yes. Do they sleep enough? And you talk to the parents, And then you realize the kid's never off a phone or a laptop. And then you realize, oh, you're used to stimulation. Your brain is messed up. I don't say that. I think it, but I don't say it. I get the parent to think it. You just ask questions the right way. You lead them to the realization, right? Why is your brain, I'm not kidding, it rewires the chemistry of your brain because it's so used to constant stimulation that when it doesn't have it, it thinks it must be nighttime. I'm not kidding. It's the same thing you do with babies and puppies when you just turn off the light and they fall asleep. New moms don't know that, right? They're like, no, he's crying. No, he's crying. And then you get the mom who's like been through 4 wars and 5 kids. She's like, and she walks out. And the kid falls asleep. And they're like, how did he sleep? Because his programming says, oh, dark sleep time. And the kid falls asleep. But you have a 13-year-old doing this. That's not healthy. Overstimulated brain. That's a real thing. I have to deal with this in altar servers now. And I'm like, oh, goodness. All right. This is weird. Some of you don't get to boredom. You just go to sleep. But the rest of you, the few, the brave, who make it through sleep, now you have to deal with boredom. Great quote by David Foster Wallace. He's talking about bliss, but leave bliss alone for a second. He says, I'm going to paraphrase him just to cut it down a bit, but he says, pay close attention to the most tedious thing you can find. Golf on TV, taxes, anything you want. And slowly, waves of boredom will begin to crash over you. They will smash upon you and almost break you. They will drown you. They will wash over you. But if you can ride these waves out, it will feel like finally getting a drink of water after many days in the desert. Many of you are terrified of boredom. That's mean, Father. Too bad. Because you're never letting yourself be bored. It's like the Black Death. Run. Just run. Be afraid. So you've never been bored. Now, usually when we do this retreat, at some point before the first talk, I tell you, be bored. But I realize since the retreat's on silence, I can skip some stuff because it'll be in the talk. Most of you don't. When was the last time you were bored and you couldn't reach and solve it with your phone? You went to sleep. No. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, I'll wait. Or you moved and tried to do something to break the boredom, but you didn't just sit with yourself. A bit of boredom is not bad. Boredom is the great wall. If you can cross the wall, I promise there's a whole world for you on the other side. All kinds of stuff is on the other side. There's almost no limit to what I can offer you on the other side of boredom. Your brain is a magnificent, magnificent machine. Better than any machine ever created by man. What it can do, if it is okay with boredom, is lethal. It gets past all of that. What do you mean? Okay, pick a skill. Any skill. Paint, art, writing, football, what? Any skill. Taxes, writing IPEs for kids. Any skill you want. And you had to get to a point where you crossed the wall. When you had to learn how to do it, there was the wall in front of you of boredom. You were like, ugh, I don't want to do this. Some of you are on this side of that wall, which is why you stink at those things. Some of you are on the other side of that wall, which is why you excel at those things. But you have to cross that wall. That wall's always there, and you got to climb the thing. There's no way to do it. You just got to climb this stupid thing and fall on the other side. Any skill you had to learn how to play the guitar, your fingers hurt, and then you get bored, you're like, what else am I going to do? And you gave up. And so you were only a jack of all trades, but a master of none. When you get excellent at something, it's because you crossed the wall of boredom. You kept going past boredom. Or even better, you went to like that psycho zone where you never feel bored. You know people like that. They get into music and they never are bored. That's why they're amazing at guitar in 6 months. You're like, how did you do that? Well, because they just, fine. But they'll hit that wall. Everybody hits the wall. In any endeavor, you hit that wall, and you have to decide what you're going to do when you get across it. The University of Virginia has a study. I wanted to look up. I heard about the study, but I looked up the university because I wanted to make sure that you could look it up, because I know you're not going to believe what I'm going to say. The University of Virginia had a study. And what they found is they left people alone in a white room, a simple room with nothing to entertain them and nobody to talk to them for a certain amount of time. Okay? And then they interviewed these people. Okay? Sometimes science has to point out the obvious before it finds out something cool. So bear with me. They asked these people, did you like being alone? Obviously, the majority of people said, I did not like being alone. Okay, great. Thank you. These were all volunteers. This wasn't torture. Well, we'll get to that. So then they took those people and they did it in different ways. Waiting in your house alone. Most of those people said they cheated. They were like, yeah, it was fine. But they found later they're like, yeah, I totally cheated. Some people were in the lab. Some people were different places. Some people were outside. Some people were given a window to watch. Some people were given a task to do just to see. Because they wanted to see if Pascal said what he said about sitting alone is true. Can you sit alone, and is there problems that come from not being able to? So let's see if people like sitting alone. If everything we do that's wrong with us comes from not being able to sit still alone in a room. Everybody with me? Because this is where it gets crazy. Then they gave those same people, all volunteers, a very painful electric shock.
Wow.
They volunteered. They hooked it up to their ankle, nice sensitive spot. And then they held up the buzz and said, "You ready?" And they gave him a nice little jolt, just enough to hurt. Okay? They wanted to make sure, because that's important. Everybody with me so far? Then they sent them back to wherever they were, and they gave them the buzzer. They had control of a buzzer they knew would hurt them. And then they were left alone with their thoughts. Now you see where this is going to crazy town? Next stop, Psycho Town. Over 50% of people, that means most people, just so we're clear, preferred pain to being alone with their thoughts.
Wow.
Let me repeat that. Over 50% of people preferred pain to no stimulation. One guy shocked himself over 190 times. Even the researcher goes, "I don't know what's wrong with that guy." Like that was high for most, but he's fun to know about. Even the researcher was like, "I don't know what's wrong with that guy. Something was wrong with it. He might have been into it. I don't know." And by the way, because they're scientists, they went and they asked the people, "Did you like that?" when they first shocked them. So the people were like, "Yeah." They're like, "Okay, go away. We don't want you." Well, I mean, that's for other studies. Lots and lots of other studies. They went with it just so you were like, "Oh, Father." No. They asked, "Are you used to it? Were you tortured as a kid? Were you shocked as a..." They wanted to make sure that it was, "I don't like this." Everybody with me? But they preferred, "I don't like this pain," to being alone with their thoughts. One guy, 109 times. Now, there's one fact about this study that I haven't told you. The most important fact, yeah. How long were they alone? That matters. Are you ready? The train is now off the rails in Crazy Town. The time was between 6 and 15 minutes. I told you, that's why I gave you the details about the study, so you can look it up. Okay? Crazy Train is off the rails, okay? Now, think about that 190 guy, and then think 15 minutes. Let's say at the outside, how many times a minute? Somebody do the math on that one. Like, you just like, to be alone. Because, understand, 190 is just hard to count to. And then, like, you're just going to, it's 193 or 196 times, whatever, I don't know. That's how bad we are. So when I tell you don't like being alone with your thoughts, don't be like, "Not I," and clutch your pearls. More than half. This part of the room. You people are normal. This part of the room. More than half. That's a normal group of... By the way, that study was like 2 or 3 years ago. It wasn't like 20 years ago or 30 years ago. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. We're not used to it. The next thing and the next reason to look at silence is why? Because God is present in silence. I make the claim, and I do, that God is present in silence. And I think not only is he present in silence, when you get to silence, you meet God. Not only do when you get to silence, you meet God. I actually think that's where he lives. That's his kingdom. That's his palace. You want to enter the palace of God, you have to enter silence. I'm going to propose that to you. And I'm going to walk you through that this weekend. I think the only place you're going to find him is there. Now, let's look at nature. Nature, whenever nature has great change, whenever there's big change, earthquakes, volcanoes, rivers overflow, lightning strikes, big change in nature, noise is the norm. None of the big things in nature ever happen without great, terrifying, ear-shattering, dangerous noise. Krakatoa, the volcano that might be, we think, the loudest sound ever created. It was by nature. It was a volcano didn't erupt. It exploded. The pressure built up so much it exploded. It was heard around the world. Killed people because of the percussive blast of the sound. Nature makes noise when she makes a big change. You know this already. I'm just pointing out something you already know. What you may not have noticed, but you already know, is the exact opposite is how God works. When there is great change in the spiritual life, when someone has a conversion experience, when someone has an inner transformation, When someone has a realization of the horror of sin or has a moment where they receive the beauty of God's love and grace. When someone receives or even is present at a sacrament, the law is silence. Silence. Any noise involving any of those things is created by others, not by God. Silence. Now, that's why I go back to the point of saying, not only is God present in silence, I think that is his kingdom. I think that is his palace. Because in every great change, I'll do you one even better. In every small change of nature, it is silent. The stars go around, the earth rotates, the sun burns. Plants grow, children develop in the womb. You are growing right now, right? Your cells are dying and being born, and all of that is silent. The majority of the time, nature is silent. When she makes great change, she makes noise, but God always works in silence. You know, in confession, we're going to talk about confession at the end, about slots for if people want to go, but in confession, it's a uniquely silent moment. You have people who are letting go of horror of sin, of weights, of guilt, of shame, of self-hate, of self-criticism, of hurt from their parents, of hatred for God, of doubt in their ability to even change that they're trying to do. You have all that happening and almost no noise. It's a very quiet thing. And that's probably the loudest of the sacraments, by the way, because the most talking, because it has to be done through talking. And in fact, the forgiveness that happens has already begun because their conversion is interior. Happened before they walked into the confessional. When they said, I got to change my life, that already God's grace begins to touch them, right? If you didn't know that, that's how that works, right? If you didn't know that, I found that out. How did I find out? When I was a little kid, I was learning how to go to confession. And I was like, what if I get hit by a bus crossing the street? I lived across the street from the church. So it was a very specific question, okay? And the priest said, well, if you're sorry for your sins, you go to heaven anyway. I was like, for real? He goes, yes, but you have to go to confession anyway. I was like, oh. Because you didn't die. Oh, okay, yeah, you're right. If you died, then, that's a different set of rules that apply to you. Okay, gotcha. But I was like, it's across one-way street. I was like, one-way street? But I could get hit by a bus. I mean, and then you get older and you realize that getting hit by a bus is not the fastest and scariest way to die. That your heart has all kinds of games it does where it just turns off and people die. Right? You're a little kid, you don't know about heart attacks. Then you get old, you're like, wait, so I can, what? Because I just never go outside, I won't get hit by a bus. And then you realize, no. I'll live in a job that attaches my house to the church, so I can't go outside to get to church. I can't die. And then you're like, wait, what is that? And so you have to figure out these things. So yes, God's grace begins to reach them, and yet all of that was in silence. And even the moment of absolution, the priest says the words of absolution, but everything else is in silence. But forget confession. How about the greatest sacrament of all, the greatest miracle that happens at every Mass, the greatest miracle that happens? Bread, wine, and a little bit of water become the body, blood, soul, and divinity of God. Every Mass, we are back at Calvary as Christ dies. We are back at Holy Thursday as Christ offers the Last Supper. That all happens. That time travel, all of that time travel, that transubstantiation, that means changing of substance, that consecration, all that happens in the Holy Eucharist, in communion. No noise. What do you hear? You hear the priest say, take this, all of you, and eat of it. Take this, all of you, and drink from it. But it's silent. And the Eucharist doesn't make any noise. The silence of God in the Eucharist we're going to look at tomorrow in communion. When you go pray and you're like, how come you don't talk to me? We can talk about why or how is God quiet in communion, but we can't deny that he's quiet. Go to the chapel after this if you want to go hang out in the chapel. You'll wait for a while. You're going to hear stuff outside. Not much, by the way. It's Fishkill, so it's next level. But you won't hear God say something not like the way I'm talking to you. Other than the priest's words, it's silent. The law of God's actions has always been silence. Another thing to look out with silence is presence, because silence is not an absence of presence. Some of you are going to struggle. We'll get to that in a few moments, but some of you struggle being silent because you don't like that it diminishes your presence. I'm not like that. Okay, cool. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's not an absence of presence. It's a manifestation. And interior silence, it's the end of your judgment, of your passion, of your desires. So what? So you leave space for God. That's the purpose of silence. That's its place, to make space for God. Look, you can either be in yourself, right, in your head, in your thoughts, in your heart, or you can be in God. There's no other way. Those are your two choices. For all of creation, by the way. It's for all of existence. And from now until you go into eternity, you either can be in yourself or you can be in God. Well, then why is God in silence? Well, what does the Bible say? God is love. It's the most important verse of the Bible. St. Augustine said. I trust St. Augustine. The most important verse in the Bible is God is love. Well, love is never forced. Love doesn't interrupt you while you're talking. No, but I wanted to... love waits. So you have to stop talking. Why is God in silence? Because he respects your free will. You have to make space for him. And you don't have to. If you don't want to, that's fine. But he's not going to impose himself. That's not what love does. In truth, when you are silent, when you have learned, and then you've been silent in moments before, when you are silent, what you're doing is making yourself smaller. So then God has space. You must decrease so that he can increase. God dwells in stillness. You have to, it's a great phrase Cardinal Sarah said, God dwells in stillness, so I have to wrap myself in silence so I can hear him. I thought, what a great phrase, to take your silence and wrap it around yourself. God speaks. That's the other reason he's in silence. What do you mean? Well, he can't be heard. He's speaking, but he can't be heard unless you're silent. Why do you know God speaks? Because what does the beginning of the Bible say? In the beginning, God said, let there be light. He spoke. God speaks all of creation. Look at the 7 days of creation. God said, let there be, let there be, let there be. He speaks everything into creation. Let us make man in our image. The beginning of the book of the Gospel of St. John, what did it say? In the beginning was the Word. And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The role of language and speaking in Judeo-Christian faith, I cannot stress it enough. You do not realize how important speech is in this religion. You need another religion if that's not important to you. It is of supreme importance. The role of speaking something into creation, massive importance. Most of us do it so naturally we don't think of it. By the way, that's why we judge things as alive or not alive if we think they talk. If they can't talk, then they're not alive. At least communicate, right? And talking doesn't have to be with words, but if they communicate words through ideas or movements or gestures or actions or signals, because we're a logocentric culture. All of Western civilization is logocentric. Logo is word, logos. That's where we get the word logic from, or biology. All of the logies for studying stuff is to study, the science of. Logos, word. That's the word that they use in the beginning of the Gospel of St. John. In the beginning was the logos, the word. God speaks, and so he needs silence so that he can speak to you. You don't hear the voice of God the way you hear my voice. You know that, and I know that. Yeah. If that is not true, then you have had an extraordinary experience. But the vast majority of times, that's not how God speaks. So you have to listen in a different way. That's why you can't hear God. Why can't I hear God? Because you're listening the wrong way. Now, I'm going to assume those are real things. There are people who suffer from mental breakdowns and they think they hear things too. That's a different animal. But actually, you can tell the difference. Not playing around. I heard a voice, and a psychologist who works in exorcisms will say, well, where did you hear it? And the priest will want to look at them funny, but you're trained not to. You just go, oh, okay, yeah, what he said, where did you hear it? Because where you heard it actually can identify whether it's a severe psychosis or whether it might be something else. So, yeah, there's crazy people, is what I'm trying to say. But there's people who are not. Just saying. God speaks, and I would propose to you, he speaks all the time. The question is, do you listen? How about I do you one better? Can you hear him? I listen. Can you? Are you even capable of hearing him? Sure, I listen. That's not what I asked. Are you capable of hearing? That's a different answer. You may not be capable of hearing, right? There's lots of noises you can't hear, right? Like there's a whole spectrum of sounds and waves that we cannot perceive, light and sound, because we're not built for it, or we've damaged ourselves so we can't hear it. So you got to be capable. I want to talk to you about wonder. Now let's see what we can do about wonder. Let's do a little experiment. Oh, I want to move, but I'm not supposed to. Let's do some wonder, okay? I'll settle for awe. I'll settle for awe. Okay. In 1996, on May 11th, 1996, a lot of people died on Mount Everest. More than almost ever. Now you have to understand, people die on Mount Everest every single year. And you can see their bodies anytime you can get up there, because no one removes their bodies. The reason you don't remove their bodies is because the air is so thin you can't get a helicopter up there. It doesn't lift up the helicopter. Well, then why don't they carry them down? Because when you get above a certain height, your body's not built for that. So it begins to eat itself, digest itself. They call it the kill zone. You climb above a certain height, and your body says, oh, we're not supposed to be here. And something happens, and I don't know the science behind it, but it begins to digest itself. You lose weight just by breathing. So your energy is gone. Any fat or muscle on your body is consumed by your body just to stay alive. So what you do is when you climb Mount Everest, you don't climb it in a day. You climb it in stages. You have base camp, then a second camp, then a third camp, then you get to the Hillary step, Sir Edmund Hillary, and you wait there, and that's your last camp. And that's right below the kill zone. The death zone, I think is what they call it. You wait right there, and you make your camp, and then that day, you go up, and you come back down that day, because you'll die. Because if you're there overnight, it freezes, and you'll freeze to death. And if you're there anyway, you'll probably die just because, again, your body eats itself. Everybody with me? So what happens when someone dies is you gently move them to the side and you leave them there. In fact, there are entire trails up Mount Everest that tell you how to get there based on the bodies. Go by the guy in the green parka, go by the guy in the blue parka, go by the guy, and you go by the guy called Green Boots, go by the guy, and you go all the way up. If you're going to die and you think you're going to die, oh, by the way, because the air is so thin, you take oxygen with you. Now, how much oxygen do you take? Just enough to get up and back down. Why don't you take more if something goes wrong? Anybody want to guess? Because you can't carry it. Now you're getting it. So you can only carry what you can get up there and come back. So if something goes the slightest bit wrong, you're going to die. But there's something worse. Your oxygen tube can freeze. Right in the neck part where it comes from the tube to the part that you breathe on. And if it freezes up there because of the moisture of your breath, then you don't have air. So you go back to the dying option. If you know you're going to die, many climbers will unhook themselves from the cables. What cables? You dig cables in, and you hook yourself to the cable till you get to the next hook, then you move it to the next part of the rope, and you keep going so you don't get lost. And also because it's the most direct path, because you have no energy to waste to get lost. And so, if you're going to die, you'll unhook yourself and just step off the path. Not far, just a foot or two, and die there. And this whole thing can happen while people know because they can hear you, because radios work just fine. Maybe they work better because there's less atmosphere. So you hear and you talk to people and they say goodbye. Tell everybody I love them. Now they don't die within minutes, they die a couple hours. So they're still alive. You just can't do anything for them. Now human beings aren't built for that, mentally. So we don't like people dying up there. So what we do is we go, we're going to get them. And we try, and sometimes we save someone, sometimes we don't. Most times we don't. So on May 11th, 1996, something like 20 people died in one day because a storm came. And it's not supposed to be storms in that time of the year. That's why they plan it. They went up, they made the height, they made the top. I think the first Korean woman to ever climb Everest died that day. A bunch of people died. And the guy who had the world record for the most climbs of Everest, that wasn't a Sherpa. The Sherpas are the people who live there that climb it all the time. They're just awesome. And they're partially evolved for lower air, thinner air. They're a really interesting group of people. So they go up all the time because they're your guide up there. But he was the first, he had the record 5 times climbing Everest without being a Sherpa. He met his wife climbing. Come on, you know that. She was a climber too. She was supposed to be with him, but she was pregnant, 7 months with their little baby girl. So she couldn't go. So they went up there, and a group of them went up there, and he was the lead guide. He was up there, and Rob, the guy, saw Doug's tube started freezing. So he called down and said, quick, we need a thing. His thing is starting to freeze, and mine is too. Now, you can survive for a bit without the tube, as it freezes up, and then I guess you have some time. I don't know exactly the science, but you don't have a lot of time. So they sent someone up with another tube. Somebody got another tube. Somebody else got lost. Don't know how, because the blizzard hit. I don't know how they got unhooked. Maybe they went because you go along the rope and you unhook quickly and you hook right next to the hook to keep going. And I guess in that moment he lost it and he was gone. So a bunch of the people didn't make it to save them. Some of the guys they saved, some of them didn't. He was the last guy going down with him and Doug. Doug started hallucinating. Said, I don't think I'm going to make it. Started hallucinating, unhooked himself, started taking off his clothing and walked off the side of the mountain. Disappears. Because the oxygen and the cold aren't right for your brain. Your brain isn't built for it. All kinds of things begin to happen. You begin to see all kinds of things. Rob realized he wasn't going to make it. So he said, guys, I'm not going to make it. I'm going to unhook myself. Sorry. And they didn't, at the camp, they said, no, 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 no. And someone said, call his wife. Put him on the radio. That'll wake him up. That'll get him going. So they radioed his wife. And his wife got on the phone and she's like, hey, honey, what's up? And he lied. I'm good. Just wanted to talk to you for a bit, see how things are going. How's things? She's like, good, good. I'm a little worried. Why are you radioing me? Oh, I'm at Hillary. I'm a little past Hillary. We're doing all right. Just wanted to, I made it 5th time. It's a world record. What are we going to name our daughter? They hadn't picked a name yet. So they talked for a bit. They settled on the name Sarah. Then he got off the radio and he told his friends, you guys, I lied. I didn't want to upset her. She's pregnant. She's 7 months pregnant. I can't upset her. She could lose a baby. And he's dead. He's still there. His body perfectly preserved because of the freezing cold and the dry air. It's a desert, It's a desert surrounded by the oceans, but it's a desert. It's surrounded by snow, but it's so cold that it's not liquid. There's no rain up there. His body's perfectly preserved. All of those bodies are there. His daughter was born 2 months later. They named her Sarah. What I just told you was a true story. And it's a horrifying story. Apparently, I think somebody told me they made a movie about it.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. Apparently they made a movie about it. Someone's like, I told someone, they're like, yeah, I think they made a movie. Sounds like a movie. I said, what? Okay, and they, called Everest? Everest. I knew about the story before I knew about the movie. I was horrified, at the story. Mm-hmm. What you felt when I was telling you that story and the power of what that mountain can do is awe and maybe moments of wonder. I told you, I want wonder, but I'll settle for awe. I just told you a true story, and I inspired in you a sense of awe. Awe is different from wonder because it can have fear. Wonder doesn't have fear. It just has delight. Wonder is a powerful thing. It's made up of something like surprise, contemplation, curiosity, joy. Psychiatrists, have tried to define what wonder is, emotion, that work with emotions. It's about that mix. Awe is similar, but it has a little element of fear and of reverence. I bet you felt reverence for those people that do this and reverence for the power of that mountain. Because you realize what it can do. When you have a sense of wonder, your mind quieted. Most of you, while you were hearing that very real and horrifying thing, your mind's quieted. You were focused. You were in the moment. You were listening to every single thing I said. Any professional speaker, if he's half good at it, can do it. Especially if he's got that kind of a reality to tell. Wonder is one of the doorways that you can use for silence. And silence is one of the doorways to wonder. And both are doorways to God. So if you need a little bit of help, wasn't going to originally help you at all this week, but I was this week until now, till the end of the weekend, but I was like, all right, I'll give him a tip. A couple tips. Use wonder. The thing is, if you're not quiet, you don't have wonder. You are incapable of wonder. I couldn't tell you that story if we were downstairs in the snack room and everybody was eating. Doesn't work. There has to be no noise, and then you have a chance for wonder. It quiets you quickly. Wonder is when something surprises you, catches your attention, and focuses your attention. It kind of just grabs it and pulls it down and says, look. But it doesn't quite bother you. Silence helps. They're connected. Good religion does that, by the way. Catholicism is funny, right? The robes, the incense, the chanting, the big rooms, the art, architecture. Yeah, why do you do that? To help you inspire wonder, doofus. It's on purpose. Oh, so what? It's not real? No, but it helps you reach God. It's not because the art itself is God. It's not. It's to help you reach God. That's why I went to the Mona Lisa. I remember going, all right, let's go see this thing. It stinks because there's a bathroom near the Mona Lisa. If you ever go to the Louvre, you'll see the bathroom. You're like, follow us in line. There's a bathroom. It was backed up. It was terrible. And there was a big crowd of people who was like, oh, this thing stinks. What is it? And I remember a few seconds later going, what? Oh, yeah, what? Wonder caught me. I saw the art that people have come to see. I saw that picture that I've seen printed on a billion things. I saw it with my own eyes, and I understood what wonder is. I felt it. I went to see Our Lady of Guadalupe. I know Our Lady of Guadalupe. My first Mass vestment had Our Lady of Guadalupe on front. I've seen Our Lady of Guadalupe. All right, I know everything about it. I would say, all right, and I saw they have a moving sidewalk in front of Our Lady of Guadalupe. If you ever go there, you'll see the moving sidewalk, and Father ain't lying. There's three moving sidewalks. One goes this way, one goes this way, one goes this way. They herd you from one to the other, and then get out. Okay? I was like, whatever. You can see it when you get in the Basilica of Brian. And then I got close to it, and I looked out, and I said, I don't know, this moving sidewalk is... Oh, yeah, I got to get on the next one. And then I realized why they put the moving sidewalk in. I experienced wonder. I saw this image that I can tell you all about the theology of the image. I can describe the image to you. Can't draw for a thing, but if there was an artist, I could tell you the image, and I'm really good at it. I'd tell you everything about it. It's not the same thing as seeing it. Wonder. Wonder is a doorway to silence, and silence is a doorway to wonder, and they're both doorways to God. They'll help you. Good religion has that. I'll finish with this. King Solomon was asked by God when he first became king, what do you want? He has a dream. He builds the temple because his dad, David, wanted to build it. Saul, first king of Israel, 1 syllable. David, second king of Israel, 2 syllables. Solomon, third king of Israel, 3 syllables. There you go. That's your present. What about the fourth king? You don't have to know anymore because there were only 3 kings that united all of Israel. So there's your present. Okay, so after that, the kingdom was split, north and south kingdom. Okay, so David wants to build a temple. God says, no, your son will. Don't worry. Solomon grows up, builds the temple. And the night it's consecrated, he has a dream. And God appears and says, what you have done for me is beautiful. People will remember you forever. What do you want? Long life? You want all your enemies to die? You want a blessing over your people? I'll give you anything you want. God tells you that. That's amazing. What would you answer? God says, hey, good job, kid. I like how you dress today. You look smart. You look sharp. You get whatever you want. You're going to be like, really? I don't know. I figure something anybody can do. What does Solomon say? I ask for an understanding or a discerning or a listening heart. A silent heart. I'm young and this people is big and you told me to rule them. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Guide me. God says, I like that. Because you didn't ask for any of the other stuff, I'm going to give you the most discerning and wise heart that has ever existed. People will tell stories about you forever. But I'm also going to give you long life. I'm also going to give you great riches. I'm also going to end the life of all of your enemies. I'm also going to make you respected by all of your friends. So all the things he didn't ask for, because he had a listening heart. Be silent. You'll get all the other stuff. When you are silent, you are present, but in the most magical sense. Is magic real? Absolutely. You want to see magic? There's a lot of ways. Wake up tomorrow. Go outside. Front of the building. 7:22. See magic. But another way to see magic is be silent. Because what will happen, and you think I'm lying and I'm being cute or anything, watch. You will learn how to be present and not present at the same time. If you've ever been perfectly focused, you are present and not present. Only time you can do that. You know everything that's happening around you, and you are totally beyond everything that's happening around you. It's the only time you can do that. You want to see magic? Go do it. When you are silent, truly silent and still, interior, first exterior silence, then shut up all the thoughts, doubts, emotions, distractions, right? First you start the external stuff. You sit quietly, comfortably. You close your mouth, close your eyes, or focus your eyes on something that's not distracting you. Then you realize that you're not quiet. Then you realize you've got a whole crowd in here making noise and yelling and fighting for position. Now shut them all up. Don't shut them up. Just move past them. I'll teach you how to do that on Sunday better, but just move past them. And all the way at the bottom, you'll be present. Like you've maybe not been present in a long time. You'll be really present, but you'll also be beyond all of the things that are around you. That's magic. That's what silence gives you. Now we're going to stand. And we're going to head. I'm going to stand because I'm going to ask someone, can you help me hand out these forms? These forms are a form I give out